Work it, make it, do it, make sense.
All right, so this is the Symphony of Leadership. In case you didn't know and you thought you were in a design track or a developer track, you are in a soft skills talk, people. Anyone that it does not mean to be here, get up and leave, please. All right, you are spending the next 50 minutes in a soft skills talk. Thank you for joining me. My name is Heather Wilde. I am the CTO of a company called TWIP and ROCeteer. But in my 20-plus years career, I've done many things, as I'm sure many of you have. One of those that I've become a little bit famous for is that I was one of the founding members of a team called Evernote. Many of you probably have this automatically installed on your computers and phones. Sorry about that. But it's one of the ways that we got to unicorn growth. It is something of a point of pride, though, that we got to unicorn status because people actually loved us enough to keep using it, even though they were annoyed, and they did not install it when they rooted their phones. So I was very happy about that. But something that people don't really know about me is that I was also a classically trained opera singer. So I spent 16 years studying to be an opera singer, and I love music. So pretty much everything I see in the world has a music lens on top of it. And when you have all of that inside of you, the world becomes a beautiful place. And for me, everything is music. And as Holly was saying this morning, part of what you're here at DevOps to learn is how to see the world a little bit differently, to learn another perspective on what you're doing. So I want to give you a little bit of my perspective on leadership. So as I mentioned, I was part of the founding team of Evernote. But it started with one guy called Phil Libin, who was the CEO. And he had a vision for that company. And that vision was he wanted to cure Alzheimer's. I know, right? Can you imagine that Evernote was formed for that? Well, he wanted to sit down when he was 90 years old, and when he can't even remember what he had for breakfast that morning, he wanted to be able to remember what he did when he was 12. He wanted to see all of those terrible ideas that he had in high school and have a notebook for that. And he wanted to have a recording of all of the memories of his life. He wanted an external brain, something that could remember his life for him. That was the idea that he had, and he had a vision. And he also had an idea of how to make this happen and who he was going to need to do it. And like me, Phil Libin also had a music background. Phil is the son of two classical pianists, so he grew up around a musical family, and he understood that in order to have something grow and be built properly, you need to fill the seats. In an orchestra, you have to have the first chairs. You have to have woodwinds, percussions, strings, the flute, everything you need to audition those people. And if you don't have exactly the right players playing in harmony the whole time, what happens? It sounds terrible. Imagine going to hear an opera or a concerto, and even one instrument sounds off. It doesn't work. Phil knew this, so when he was recruiting his orchestra for Evernote, he put in his mind exactly who he wanted. And then, who here has seen the Muppet movie? First one, yeah. Well, it was kind of like he was Kermit the Frog going around singing, moving right along. And he went and found the people that he had gone to school with or grown up with, and people that he knew could do those jobs, could fill those seats, those best players. And he actually went around the world because people grow up, people move on from college, from high school, from your friend around the street. They weren't next to him at the time he had this beautiful idea. I was living on my sailboat in Mexico when he shows up knocking on my boat, asking for me to join Evernote. It took him 3 times to convince me. It finally took his wife with a basket of goodies of my exact favorite things to convince me to join, to prove that this was something that I needed to be a part of. But he knew exactly in his head, because he was the conductor for this orchestra, and it needed all of us to make the perfect harmony. This is a terrible slide, I know. It's hard to read in here. But every team has roles that need to be filled. If you're a solopreneur, you're all of these things at once. You're going to be flipping back and forth between engineer and marketer and HR, but you still need the best player in that seat for it to be beautiful music, or you're not going to succeed. And you need to be able to adapt. So each team needs to understand how this can be filled. Every part is essential. Without these roles, you cannot move forward. So when you hear words like agile, you need to understand that it means that you are going to be developing quickly, but still working in harmony. There is a lot of control that's required, and everyone needs to be moving in precision with each other. So unlike traditional methods where a manager would give somebody something to do and then constantly be on top of them, with an agile development team like Evernote, everyone had to be highly technical and highly skilled and be trusted to do their job. And it had to be very flexible in how to do it. So we all had our individual skills. Each person had their skills and was able to communicate with each other. So because a team assigns tasks among its members and monitors a project's progress, you have to be a technical expert at what you're doing. And that's why it's so essential to make sure the best person for your team is in that seat. You have to be motivated. Phil was a great conductor for us. He was a great leader because we were constantly motivated to go forward. How many of you are motivated by your leaders every day? Yeah, not many of you, unfortunately. This is something that so many people miss, but it's a key to success. Because if you are motivated, then you'll find it within yourself to get the job done. If you're looking to someone else to do the job for you, then an agile team is going to lose momentum. And again, each person needed to be adaptive. We needed to, while each of us be technical in our own fields, if one of us played the wrong note, you need to be able to improvise quickly so it doesn't sound terrible. Because how many people release buggy code? Come on. Yeah. But what do? You patch it. And you cover up for the buddy that released the buggy code. Now, how many of you are in distributed teams? Yeah, so how important is it that you communicate what you are doing in some way to the people that you are working with? With Evernote, with our first team, these people were around the world. Phil went around the world to collect us, but didn't bring us to each other. So I was still living on my sailboat in Mexico, filling my seat, playing my instrument, while everyone else was in their individual places. If we hadn't had a way to let each other know what we were doing, then would Evernote be the company that it is today? I don't think so. What we did was every day we had a way to communicate, to let each other know quickly what we were working on with the company. And we used integrated thinking to come up with answers to problems. Now, who here knows what integrated thinking is? All right, cool. This is awesome because it's a way to find answers to problems that no one else has thought of before. You just think in an entire systems way. For example, what I did, why I was so useful to Phil was the way that I apply things like thinking about music in leadership. At Evernote, I thought, let's run Evernote like an airline. I created a hub and spoke system of distributed teams inside a tech company. This was something that nobody had done in Silicon Valley before. And to my knowledge, only one other company is doing it, and that's somebody that's run by a company that's run by a former Evernoter who cloned us. It was highly successful, and it's because we were able to apply systems thinking to a problem that we were given. But by doing that, by understanding what problems we were all running into individually, we were able to postmortem this. Postmortems are a very important thing that you do when you're running an agile team, because you have to understand what you're doing every day. And I mean it every day. I use a program called I Done This, which is great because you can just say, literally, what did you do today, so that everyone else on the team has transparency. And it's you just put down the 3 things that you found most important that you did that day. It's very important. So what are the things that are most important for a conductor to lead their team? They have to start with a plan. Phil had his plan, his vision for what he wanted to do. Even though he had the team, he knew who he wanted. It didn't matter. He couldn't convince me to join him until he could prove to me that this was going to be something important. So if you have a vision, then you can get people to follow you if you have the leadership skills to do it. If you're confident enough and you can show that you have a plan of how you're going to get it done, then that is the first step to how to get your orchestra started. Then, just like Phil, you recruit the best players. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to go to Stanford and Harvard and MIT and get people that graduated at the top of their class. What it means is you find the people that will fill out your orchestra the best. Who can play this piece for you? And that's not going to be the same for everyone. The person that she is as a manager is not the same person that he is as a manager. And the people that will fall underneath you, the people that will follow you, are not the same. So who is your team? You need to hire properly. The conductor is visible. Now, in an orchestra, the conductor is standing on a platform. They're always there. They're not hiding somewhere off stage. They're not somewhere that you can't find them. They are always there, ready to be seen if something goes wrong. So if you have a leader that's not out in front of you, that you can't go to, that you can't see their direction, then your company is not likely going to have a direction to go for very long. At least not in the companies that I've seen. So successful teams have leaders that are visible, that are out there, and that give you clear directions. They take full responsibility for everything that they are doing. One of the things that I did after Evernote was I was brought down by a man called Tony Hsieh to help him work with something he was working on called the Downtown Project in Las Vegas. He's the CEO of Zappos, which is an outpost of Amazon, and he was having trouble with some of his investments. And one of those was actually the city of Las Vegas, is one of his investments, the downtown area. And because he was out, he was supposed to be visible as the leader of this project, but there was no leader. So people didn't know where to go. People didn't know who to talk to. So one of the things that I did was I helped to put a leader there. I helped to have somebody that people could go to talk to about what is the direction of this project? What are we trying to do? What are our aims? And within a year, we'd turned around the ROI of the project. Like it had been losing about $350 million, and we turned it around to like over $1 million in profit. I mean, $100 million in profit. So it is a very, very big problem when you do not have a clear person to turn to. This is one of the most important things that people lose in their teams. I love this slide. One, I'm a big Star Wars geek, but who here has a manager that's they just cannot stand? You can be honest. Yeah. It's probably somebody that they come in and they take out all of their frustrations on you, right? Yeah, they're leading with heart in the wrong way. You need to express your emotions without being emotional. And you need to care about your employees, because a conductor feels the music. They feel the passion that's within the piece. And if you're listening to a beautiful piece of music, a beautiful aria, a beautiful concerto, then you can feel that coming through. I mean, even Harry Styles' new song can make you cry a little bit. So if they're playing full out, then you're going to feel that in the music. And you can feel it on the teams that care. When you've got a company that has leadership that cares, then you know that it's somebody you want to deal with. I mean, just think about the difference between, just think about all the airline problems that everybody's having right now. Virgin Atlantic canceling all the flights this week. Do they seem to care about people? Half of the speakers were having trouble getting here because of the cancellations. But they've left people stranded in the airport. We're having the same problems in America right now. Those companies they're not leading with heart at the moment. Conductors delegate. If you have people on your team that want to do everything themselves, and you have a manager that's allowing that, then what happens when that person is out sick or leaves for a better job offer? Suddenly, all of the burden falls onto the remaining people on the team. That is not a great manager. That is not a great leader. Your team needs to spread the work amongst each other. The conductor doesn't do everything himself. He puts people in their individual chairs. He has somebody else sell the tickets. He has somebody else make sure the instruments are tuned. He's not doing everything himself. He's conducting. So why would you, as a leader, try to do everything yourself? It's just silly. So we need to focus on our individual talents and allow that to shine through. And a good leader should allow us to make that happen as well. Every gesture, every small little thing is seen because the conductor is visible and makes an impact. Conductor can't afford to make something unintentional, because what's going to happen? You're going to go out of tune again. Somebody's going to play the wrong note. They're going to speed up. Going to slow down. It's going to sound terrible. Everything means something. So you can't afford to be careless. Just think about, for example, what if our fearless leader, Mark Hazel, what if he had done something in public this week that was something anti-Devoxian? Would we have 1,100 people here this week? Probably not. Maybe some sponsors would pull out. He's our conductor this week, and it's very important that he makes sure that every gesture he makes is perfect and on point. But the conductor keeps his back to the audience, too, because what's most important is that he's paying attention to his team. They're aware of what the audience is doing. They know if they're clapping. They know if they're snapping. They know if everybody's hating on them on Twitter. They know. But their focus is on the musicians. Their focus is on making sure that that performance is the perfect one. And then the next night, and the next night, and the next night. And that everyone is consistent. Because if it's not, then they're going to post-mortem it, and they're going to run through it, and they're going to make sure that everything's good again, and they're going to bug fix that shit. But you can see the conductor as an audience member. And that's the interesting thing. You can see what he's doing. You can see, just like in sports, you can see the coaches. You can see what they're doing, but you don't know what's going on. You know that something interesting is happening, and all of the team members know what's happening. But it's their own little world that's going on there. It's magical. Somebody that's really great at doing this is Elon Musk. So Elon Musk is visible to the world. Obviously, we all know who he is. He's in charge of basically the world's we're going to go to Mars because of Elon. But he's really mostly caring about his companies. Everything he does is to make sure that the people in his companies are taken care of. Even joining councils and things, he's public, but he's still facing his team. So he's the one behind the scenes making the music happen. And the conductor shares the spotlight. When the concert's over and the audience is clapping, who's the first person to take a bow? The good conductor turns to the audience and then says, "Thank you to my team. Make sure that you understand that this is for them. They have done this. It's not me." A good leader does the same thing. They do not take the credit for themselves. Whose managers take all the credit for themselves? So, yeah. good managers, good leaders share the credit because it's your team that gets you there. So here's some examples of companies that get this right and some that didn't. So a company called Reward Me that you've never heard of, for good reason. They raised $1 million. Pretty good, right, for a startup company. They were founded in 2010, and they strung along for 5 years until they scaled too quickly and closed down for founder misalignment. What's founder misalignment? Well, that's communication problems. These founders couldn't talk to each other. They didn't have the right team. Another company that you've never heard of is Google. They couldn't secure funding. They started in 2011, closed down in 2015. Again, 4 years, good run. They couldn't secure funding, and it led to co-founder disagreements. Now, money is a problem for a lot of co-founders. A lot of companies, they closed down because of funding. This one wasn't a problem for funding. They raised $35 million. They were, again, open for 5 years, and yet had no business model. How do you raise $35 million with no business model? I have no idea. I'd love to talk to them about that, though. Now, a company that's doing it right. And yes, I do know the problems with Uber. I am aware. But $68 billion valuation. They've had a strategic marketing plan. They do have culture problems. But their marketing plan is extremely strategic, and they're using integrated thinking to get it there. SpaceX, love Elon. I think their valuation's even up a little more this week. Have to check that one. But they're hiring the best of the best. Elon goes out and he recruits people that recruit the best people. And he doesn't even need to recruit anymore. I mean, who here would work for SpaceX in a second if they could? Yeah. Or Tesla, or Airbnb. $30 billion valuation, leads with their heart. This is an interesting scenario because their chief marketing officer says the company's motto is we lean in to the uncomfortable truth. Airbnb always wants to know if there's any problems that anyone has. They always want to know anything that you have any problems with so they can fix it right away. And it's something that allowed them to scale in such a disruptive market super quick. Their marketing strategy embraces their belief that brands, startups, and traditional companies need to use questions and concerns to their advantage. So how do you implement these strategies in your company? Or just in your, like if you're a startup without like a massive company or a solopreneur with just one person, how do you implement any of this stuff? It's so important that you do try to do something because it can increase your ROI and raise you so quickly. I mean, you get a 31% increase in productivity by paying attention to even just one of these things, and a 37% increase in sales if you pay attention to 4 out of 8. So the Harvard Business Review says you get 300% increase in innovation if you do all 8. So it is important to pay attention to these. So what you can do is you can start with behavioral assessments. So there are things like doing the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, the IOM, fingerprint for success, any of these kinds of behavioral assessments when you're hiring to find out what kind of people you have on your team, or if you already hired them, to do them now to find out. And this will allow you to know who you have on your team so you can communicate with them better. For example, I'm an INTJ. That means I am an introvert. So I would prefer working alone in a tunnel by myself, under covers in the dark, pretty much all the time. My best friend is an extrovert. She wants to be the most social butterfly ever. Do you think we love working together? Absolutely, we love working together. We work in silence together for about 24 hours straight at a clip. But you wouldn't necessarily know that unless you understood multiple facets of our personalities. Open communication processes. If you start clamming up and don't talk to one another, then your teams will continue to do that, and then you will fail. You need to start implementing things that allow you to talk. For example, again, I'm an introvert. I like to do everything via email or chat or something like that. Best friend's an extrovert. She likes to talk and be chatty. So what I instantly started to do was I created automatic GitHub check-ins so that she could see in Jira right away what I was doing, so that I could be quiet and she could see all of the stuff that I did without me having to open my mouth. But having an open communication process of some kind that works for all of your team members is important. Motivational assessments. This is different from behavioral assessments because this tells you this gives you a pulse on what your team is actually feeling right now. A behavioral assessment tells you who they are. A motivational assessment tells you where they are right now emotionally and what you can do to fix it. So, for example, the Happiness at Work survey is a great test that you can take for free online, and it tells you things like, am I stressed at work? Am I happy with the pay that I'm getting? Do I like my managers? Things like that, and it's anonymous. So if you take this as a team together, you can find out really quickly what problems you might have that you didn't know about in your company. Core values. How many people have core values for their company? How many can name the core values that you have for your company? Yeah, that's the problem. If you don't know what your core values are, you're not living your core values, therefore your core values are useless. Core values need to be something that you're living and breathing every day. If your core values, if you have a list of core values for your company that's like more than 5, for example, and they're all like big long sentences that you can't easily spout out, those aren't core values. That's a mission statement, and somebody needs to get back to the drawing board. So core values need to be active, and they need to be things that you can live and be. So your company, your core values, that's something that everyone has to have buy-in and be able to just. And it needs to also come out not just be words on a wall. It needs to come through in all of the products that you're creating, in the workspace that you have, in the playlists that you're playing in the cafeteria in your office. My company, we have core values playlists on Spotify that we play. So the ROCeteer core values are bold, inspire, love, and truth. So we actually have our Built by ROCeteer playlist on Spotify that we play for all of our team around the world, so that like when we need to feel a little bit more love today, like we just put on that playlist and then we're feeling it. So it's something that needs to be actionable, so that you know what you're doing, what you're feeling, and you can all be on the same page. And then hiring for company culture, which, if you do this wrong, you will be hiring for biases. You need to be very careful that you're hiring in the right way. Hiring for company culture in the wrong way causes problems like Uber is having right now, because they're hiring a lot of people that look like them because that's the people they know. Hiring for company culture means that you're hiring the people that will make your company live the values in the best way. So it goes back to, let's set values for the company that make us the company we need to be. Then hire the people that can help us live that vision best. And then recognize your employees. Because whether you're a man or a woman, you're not always going to be the person that stands up and says, hey, I did this, I'm awesome. People need to be recognized for the work that they do. Whether that's in a bonus, a raise, a gift card for Amazon, a cupcake, gold star, an octopus on Slack, whatever. Just recognize that people did work and that they were good and that they are good at what they do. And it's something, just take a bow at the end of a job well done. And be consistent with your brand, with your messaging, with all of it. Because if you're not consistent, if you don't deliver the same quality day after day, night after night, then people won't return. People aren't going to sell out your show at the West End. It's not going to be a long-running play. It's going to be another Reward Me or Google. Because nobody knows who those people are except in my presentations. So, with that, I have a minute or two for Q&A. So, and with that, we do rubber duckies. So now is the time in my presentations where we give unicorn rubber duckies. So, who would like a rubber ducky? All right. Okay, what question have you got?
Do you have any advice for if you're working in a team and you can see that it's not harmonious, but you're not the leader, how can you influence the leaders to recognize those problems?
So that's funny you asked that, because one of my other talks is management skills for the non-leader. It's actually something that you can. You can start to, first you can step aside and take the manager and point these things out. You can go through proper channels in your team, and if they don't take the hint, then you can start to mentor this other person yourself. So the first thing I would do is talk to the leader and see, like, you're not doing this, help them. But if you start to rise yourself, take the management skills yourself, and do that, then it will be. It usually, I've seen, ends up in your promotion to manager at some point in time, because people then point out, hey, they're the one that's mentoring me, they're the one that's awesome, and they've been the one that's most helpful, and your peers start recognizing you rather than them. But it really is, first talk to them quietly, and then if that doesn't work, then just take the lead. So, all right, here we go. Oh, close. All right. Okay.
Hi. Hello? Oh, there we go. Hi. Methodologies like DevOps and Agile often get implemented by bringing a new tool in, or say, hey, let's stand up once a day, or let's have a retrospective. But usually it boils down to changing the culture inside of an organization and changing the culture outside of the technical team. How would people who are developers or project owners help to talk to the business in a better way that stops them asking, what do I get, when do I get it, and how much is it going to cost me?
I've found the best way to influence the people outside the development team is by tying a dollar amount to it. If you can prove that the change that you're trying to make will save the company money, especially a significant amount of money, like a more than 1% amount of money, which amazingly is a significant amount, then whatever change you're trying to make, they will adopt. Until you assign a dollar amount to it, it'll fall on deaf ears. But the second that you do that, things change. So whatever you can do, turn it into an ROI of some kind, and you will grease wheels. So there you go. I'm terrible at this. Okay, yes?
That's very interesting when he talked about hiring along company culture. Could he say something about how you do that most efficiently, in particular when you have a very limited amount of time? So you have lots of candidates, you have only limited time, and the candidates obviously in the interview process are not going to behave the same way as they're going to behave in real life. So are there any secret tricks how you can be very effective with that?
Well, it depends on the type of person that you're interviewing for. So if it's a technical candidate, I have different tricks than if it's a business candidate and marketing candidate, for example. But generally what I try to do is I always try to do if I can, a job trial with people that I want to hire, of at least a week where they're actually on the job with the team that they're going to be working with, because this is the best way I've found for people to see both sides, to see if it's going to be a fit. Because in an interview, people do behave completely differently than what they're going to be at work. And sometimes you hire somebody and they find out that this job is completely different than they thought it was going to be. And then they're miserable, and then they tank the work, and you're miserable because now you have to go through hiring again. So if you do kind of a semi-internship with people, like Tony Hsieh does at Zappos, actually. He gives a month of people on the job, and he pays them $2,000 to quit within the first month if it's not for them, because it's a very unorthodox hiring culture. So I do at least a week of job shadowing with people to let them see, do you really want to work with me? Is this something that you want to do? And if you can do that, by all means, that's the only, literally that's the only way that I've found that you can honestly know if it's going to be a fit. So. All right. Oh, yes.
Hi. So this is kind of an extension to the earlier question around if you're in a team that where the leadership isn't really working. I wondered if you had any thoughts around teams where there are perhaps more than one person who has very strong views about direction and kind of almost two leaders who want to pull teams in different directions because there isn't enough sort of resource to go around.
Yes. So when that happens more frequently than it should, and that also, if an alpha leader doesn't rise quickly, then it pulls teams apart, because it's not fun working when you've got battling heads, and you end up losing your best people because they don't want to deal with that, and they don't have to deal with that because there's better places to be. So. When you have that and people don't, if it doesn't get settled quickly by somebody by either one of those two people or somebody above them, then my recommendation to everyone that's ever been in that is to get out. That's really bad, really bad.
Hi.
Yes.
You talked a lot about being a conductor and finding your orchestra. I'm about to be dropped as a conductor into an orchestra where I don't know what instruments they play, what skill level they are, and I wondered if you had any tips or advice.
Yes, that's actually the position I am most usually in, because I go in as an interim CTO quite a bit. And my main tip is you are going to have to win their trust immediately. So before even learning their skills, you'll have to win their trust, and then you get to learn more about them. Who here has had that happen to them before? Do you agree that that's the thing that you have to do? Yeah. So win their trust, and then take the time to learn more about them. But if you don't do that day one, then you'll never get the chance again. So,
thanks.
Yeah.
Hi. Let's say that you have a good company with a good culture, everything is working very fine, but do you realize that even if you have a plan, that you want to change direction, and that culture may not work well, and so you want to integrate other people with a different culture? How you prevent cultures clashes?
So I've been involved in culture changes in companies, and usually what happens is it's a person that's coming in and they're actively going to change the culture, like on purpose, because the one that was there was not working and they need to change it. And when this happens, you will lose people, and that's okay. Expect to lose a lot of people, because the people that were following the old culture are not people that you want. So, like, you're going to lose people, and great, because now you can clean house, get people that will follow your new culture, and you're going to hire for the new culture, because the people that were there were hired for the old culture, not the new one. So that's, but you're going to get a lot of friction in the time in between, and the only way to handle it is to just stay the course and know that you're doing the thing that needs to get done. All right, any more? We have time for one more question. Anyone? All right.
So you talked about the process of setting values for an organization. I've been through that a couple of times in a few different jobs, and to be candid, we were kind of a bit cynical about it. It kind of felt like a corporate box ticking sort of exercise. How can you effectively set values so that people buy into it and it feels worthwhile?
Well, again, I think if you approach it as a corporate box-ticking exercise, then they're not going to buy into it. If you actually bring the whole company in, allow them to be part of it, and then do it in such a way that they are actionable, that you are living them, and do things like in my company, how like we have the playlist, we're living it every day. Like, I mean, I know that everything I do is built by ROCeteer. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, we live our values, and it's a mantra for our company. And the companies like Southwest Airlines in the United States, where like everything is loved by Southwest because their values are love. So, I mean, you know the companies that are living their values and the companies that aren't. So if it's just words on a wall, then you didn't do it right. You just ticked the box. But it's a valuable exercise if you follow through with it. Just like anything that you do. If you're not following through, if you're not consistent, if you don't follow up, then there's no point.
Cool. Thank you.
Right. All right. Well, close. Well, I wanted to thank everybody for coming. If you have any feedback for me, I would love to hear it. If it's terrible feedback, my name is Christina Aldan, and my Twitter handle is Lucky Girly Girl. But my you can reach me on Twitter. You can email me. I will answer my. And I really love Devox, and I'm so glad to be back in London. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of Devox.